When a little girl gave her teddy to the CEO, what happened next will haunt you forever. The boardroom buzzed with a chilling, tangible anticipation that day. Executives in their sharp suits gathered, heartbeats drumming in nervous sync. A little girl in pigtails clutched a battered teddy bear, her innocent gaze locked on the towering CEO. He was a giant of a man, shadowy and imposing, his reputation dripping with ambition and ruthlessness. As she approached, whispers skittered through the room like the crackle of static before a storm. What was she doing here? Was her courage foolhardy, or was it a stroke of brilliance nobody could foresee? The girl lifted the bear high, its floppy limbs swaying like they were caught in an unseen breeze. The crowd held its breath. This wasn't just a child's toy, it was a lifeline thrown into a sea of corporate chaos. People felt something shift in the air. Was it hope? Or disaster brewing just beneath the surface? That bear, with its sewn-up scars and button eyes, had seen things nobody could imagine. And as she handed it to the CEO, a hush fell, thick as fog. Their eyes met, two worlds colliding, one filled with unyielding power and the other with pure innocence. As he accepted the bear, unease rippled through the boardroom. Rose-colored glasses shattered as the CEO's brow furrowed and his jaw tightened. The tremors of discomfort were palpable. Had he been cursed? A murmur of disbelief skimmed the walls. What does this mean? Someone whispered. What will he do? The questions hung heavy in the air, charged with foreboding. Before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash the like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The CEO's hands trembled. Was it fear? Or was it the weight of something not quite right? The moment stretched, silence wrapping around them like a shroud, suffocating and unsettling. The little girl smiled, but her eyes danced with shadows, like she knew far more than she let on. What dark secret lay within that old teddy? As the CEO's fingers squeezed the fabric, sharp gasps erupted around the room. The bear seemed to pulse with energy, as if awakening from a long slumber. What would happen next? The boardroom was a powder keg on the verge of explosion, and every onlooker felt the pull of something sinister lurking just beneath the surface. The air thickened with mystery, and hearts raced, wondering what revelation loomed just out of reach, waiting to spill chaos into their lives. As the CEO stared down at the teddy bear, time fell away. The world blurred, noises muted. That familiar, suffocating feeling crept back into his chest, dread coiling tight like a snake ready to strike. He could hear whispers now, an echo of long-forgotten fears, memories that gnawed at the edges of his mind. This bear, worn and ragged, was something he never expected to see again. Do you remember? The girl asked, soft and haunting. Her voice cut through the haze like a knife. The boardroom felt smaller somehow, the shadows deeper. He looked at her, and she held his gaze steady, unafraid. You need to listen to him, she urged, motioning toward the bear, her small finger almost reverent. The crowd exchanged nervous glances, uncertainty spiraling through them. That bear once belonged to him, a relic from a different life. The memories rushed back, joyful laughter entwined with darker secrets, a past he buried deep in the desperation to succeed. He hated what he'd done, yet found solace in the achievements he'd built. But now, facing this little girl, the weight of his decisions bore down on him like a crushing wave. It's just a toy, someone said hesitantly. The voice trailed off, drowned in the tidal wave of growing tension. Another whisper slipped through, what does she know? The CEO's heartbeat thudded painfully against his ribs. He squeezed the bear tighter, a shiver coursing through him. Had it always felt this alive? He could feel something unfurling, something he had buried long ago. The room around him began to swirl, shadows morphing into figures from his past, haunting him with judgments he couldn't ignore. Suddenly, the bear's button eyes glimmered ominously in the light, and the executives leaned in closer, their faces masked with a mixture of curiosity and horror. What illusion was the girl casting? Was this a game? The tension crackled in the air. "Tell them about the truth," she urged softly. "He knows." The boardroom erupted into chaos. Questions cascaded like a tidal wave. What does the girl mean? What truth? What is going on? The CEO felt his stomach churn. Truth? Would it come to light? The weight of past sins pressed down on him, desperate to escape like secrets clawing their way out from the grave. He had sacrificed everything for power, but what had it cost him? The girl took a step back, her innocent smile fading. "You have to decide, Mr. CEO. The bear remembers. Do you?" His heart raced. Was he ready to confront what lay hidden in the depths of his past? Could he face his failures and the innocent lives he had affected? Suddenly, the lights above flickered ominously, plunging the room into shadows. An electrifying jolt shot through the crowd, and he felt the atmosphere shift, palpable as it crackled with expectation. Each figure in the room held on to the moment, waiting for him to act. "Speak," the girl urged, her eyes pleading, but what would he say? What truth lay nestled in the seams of that old bear? As silence gripped the room once more, the specter of his past echoed in his ears, demanding acknowledgement. The weight felt unbearable, suffocating. His fingers trembled. Then, from somewhere deep within, a voice whispered. "It's time." In that instant, just as he opened his mouth to speak, the lights flickered violently, plunging the boardroom into darkness. The eerie quiet shattered overhead, a thunderous crash echoing in the distance. What had awakened? And then came the whispers, horrific, agonizing whispers that stirred the air, wrapping them all in dread. What had been awakened in the shadows? The uncertainty loomed heavy, pressing down on them as everyone held their breath, straining to hear what would come next, teetering on the edge of an unspeakable truth that threatened to shatter their very lives. Could he even bear to uncover it? Or would it consume them all? The darkness clung to the room, thick as smog. Fear rippled through the crowd, palpable. The CEO felt a clammy sweat break on his forehead. What had he opened himself up to? The silence was deafening, interrupted only by the ominous rustle of the bear as it seemed to shift in his hands, an unsettling reminder of his buried past. He closed his eyes tightly, fighting the wave of panic that threatened to pull him under. Shadows danced around him, memories bustling forth like a train out of control. There was laughter and then there were screams. The drop in his stomach was like an anchor, the weight of 1,000 decisions bearing down on his soul. "Listen to the bear," the girl's voice echoed in the void. "He knows." Just those words stirred something deep within him, something raw. He struggled for control. The boardroom, once filled with chatter and suits, now felt like a trap, every eye on him as if they could read his thoughts, his fears. "What is happening?" someone asked, breaking the spell, but the question felt insignificant in the trembling air. The CEO wished he could drown it out, but the might of the phrases hung heavy: truth, memory, accusation. The lights flickered erratically, illuminating the anxious faces around him like percussion bursts in a darkened play. Desperation swelled in every crevice. "Mr. CEO, please." A voice from the back snapped him from his reverie. "What do we do?" What did the girl mean? Forcing his eyes open, he found the girl's gaze steady, unwavering, and that wink of defiance didn't belong to a child. It felt as if she held the keys to his own Pandora's box. How could she be tied to this truth? "Enough!" he shouted, the sound breaking like glass against the walls. "I will not hide from it." The anger surged through him, a fiery wave. For years, he had crafted a life of power, but deep down, the guilt had festered. He raised the bear closer, feeling the warmth of its texture seep into his skin. It was more than a toy, it was a bridge to memories that he had long discarded. Faces flickered in the darkness, the ones he had hurt, the ones he had betrayed. The whispers intensified. They weren't just in his mind, they were tangible, alive. They wrapped around him, tightening like a boa constrictor. "Face it. Remember us. What is happening?" someone cried. This time, the panic spread like wildfire. "Make it stop." Another voice pleaded, grasping at the edges of reality. "Tell them," the girl urged, her voice rising above the chaos. Don't let them drown in your shadows. But fear had a vice grip on him. The longer he stayed silent, the more he could feel the shadows closing in. His heart raced defiance battling dread. Suddenly, the lights burst back on, flooding the room with harsh brightness. The executives recoiled, eyes wide in terror. And there, bathed in that stark light, the bear's button eyes glowed with an otherworldly light. Time stopped. He felt the world tilt beneath him, reality folding like paper. Speak! The girl implored again, though now her innocence morphed into something fierce, something powerful. He noticed the looming shadows gathering behind her, figures he recognized and wished were just illusions. Panic erupted in his chest. They were inching closer. The murmurs grew frantic, or were those sounds echoes of his past, telling him what he had feared most? Aye, he stammered, throat dry, heart thundering. What truth lay beneath the stitching? What realities awaited? And would he find the courage to unleash it, or would he find himself crippled by the very thing he created? As another crash echoed outside, rattling the windows, a final wave of nausea washed over him. What lurked behind those eyes? Something he had hidden for too long. The whispers crescendoed into a scream. Would he face the past, or let it consume him whole? The moment had arrived, but was it too late to seek redemption? The room seemed to constrict around him as time curled within itself. His breath turned shallow, each gasp pulling in the weight of 1,000 lifetimes. Faces loomed in his memory, distorted and anguished, like ghosts in a gallery of horrors. The bear in his hands felt heavier now, the fur prickling like the heat of an open flame. Remember us, the disembodied voices pleaded, an echo of the lives he had disregarded. Each shadow that mingled in the corners whispered accusations, taunting him as old wounds bled anew. Speak! The girl insisted, her eyes burning, fierce like a wildfire, piercing through the cold suffocation of fear. She pushed forward, as if her small frame held the strength of those he had wronged. The urge to scream bubbled within, battling the instincts that had kept him silent for so long. What if he failed? What if the truth shattered everything he had built? The room held its breath, the atmosphere thickening into a tangible thing, suffocating and sweet like impending violence. Do you really want this? He muttered, more so to himself than the restless crowd. Yes. The girl shot back, voice steady, unwavering. You cannot run from your past. The weight of her words crushed him, and the assembled witnesses shifted anxiously, glancing every which way, uncertain of their next move. The air crackled around them, laced with the knowledge that something monumental was about to unfold. Listen to her. A voice erupted from the back, a trembling hand raised as if it were a lifeline. If he doesn't speak, we'll all drown with him. The realization hit him hard. This was no longer just about him. The burden of his choices reached far beyond his own skin. It wrapped around those in the room, infecting them with his guilt, his shame. A shared anxiety hung in the air like smoke, and he felt the trembling heartbeats of his employees syncing with the rhythm of his own fear. Please, Mr. CEO. Another voice broke through, a hint of desperation lacing their tone. We look to you for strength. Don't let us down. He looked down at the bear, now pulsating gently as if alive with secrets. The truth stitched within it seems clawed at his conscience, scratching at the surface, desperate to be freed. What had I done? He whispered, small and broken. Memories swirled. Profit margins slipping past lives, dreams crushed under corporate greed, a tidal wave of wrongs surging against him like an ancient curse. Then the girl took a step closer, her voice now a low, fierce whisper. It's time. Make them understand. A cold shiver ran down his spine. The shadows crowded nearer, tangling with his thoughts, weaving a web of confusion. He pressed the bear to his chest and felt something shift within, a memory licking at the edges of his mind, catching fire. Wait, he breathed, the phone alarm suddenly piercing through the heavy silence. It broke the spell momentarily. Mr. CEO, what do we do? Someone said, their voice trembling with urgency. On the surface, the boardroom resembled a battlefield of nerves, but underneath, they were warriors waiting for their leader's call. With the familiar buzz now in the background, pounding in his ears like a beating drum, he summoned his courage. What was he hiding? What monsters lingered in the closet of his past? I've hurt you all, he said, his voice gaining strength amid the mounting panic. I let ambition blind me. I silenced the ones I didn't want to hear. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from outside, startling everyone. There was a rush at the windows, anxious faces pressing against glass, all staring at something unseen. What is it? Someone shouted. The shadows shifted. Panic tightened its grip. The CEO turned back to the girl. What should I do? She smiled softly, though her expression spoke volumes, an understanding that was almost sinister, as if she was guarding a massive truth just waiting to be unveiled. Face it, she urged, pointing back to the glowing eyes of the bear. You have to confront them. Or they will consume you. As the crash sounded again and the lights flickered once more, he felt the floor beneath him tremble. Would he finally lift the veil? What revelations awaited him, lurking just out of reach? The moment was arriving, but would he have the strength to reclaim it? The shrill sound of shattering glass sliced through the air, reverberating in the hearts of those gathered. The CEO felt panic rise like bile in his throat. What the hell was happening? He forced himself to move toward the darkened windows, curiosity waging battle with fear. Shadows flitted beyond the jagged, broken glass shards. What do we see? A voice trembled, but no one dared speak louder. Outside, night blanketed the landscape, but chaos unfolded. A group of figures loomed near the entrance, their faces obscured, but the hostility radiating from them was palpable. The flickering lights cast eerie shadows, transforming the boardroom into a surreal battleground. Every heartbeat echoed like a drumroll, amplifying their dread, and then, as if sensing their fear, the girl turned back to him, her expression sharp, slicing through the anxiety-laden air. You must act, she said, urgency threading through her voice. They want the truth, just like you. Not now! He exclaimed, the gravity of the moment thickening around him. What do they want? What can I say? His gaze darted between faces that were both familiar and foreign, his colleagues, his employees. They were his people, once trusting and steadfast. From behind, the bear pulsed in his arms, a rhythmic heartbeat draped in plush fabric, relentless in its demand for acknowledgement. Every tremor sent hot waves of shame coursing through him. This was more than a toy, it was a vessel for everything he had tried to bury. Suddenly, a figure broke free from the dark mass outside, a woman, illuminated by the flickering lights as she stepped closer. The flicker caught her eyes, revealing a depth of anguish, anger, and something else, betrayal. Mr. CEO. She shouted, her voice rising like a battle cry. You think hiding will absolve you? You can't just walk away from your actions. Who are you? He whispered, his voice barely audible over the thundering pulse of his heart. As familiarity surged within him, shards of recognition splintered the walls of his carefully constructed shield. She was a former employee, discarded like an afterthought. A stream of memories flowed through his mind, her efforts overshadowed by his unwavering pursuit of profits. This orphaned soul before him was one of many victims. The room heated with intensity as the crowd pressed closer, reality pulling them in. It's not just her. Came a voice from the back, breaking through his reverie. Do you remember the others? The layoffs, the broken promises? The blur of the past surged forth, a tide of faces and stories morphing into a cacophony of accusations. Each voice cut through the hollowness, forcing the truth into the unforgiving light. He had failed them. Taking a deep breath, electric with courage, he turned to the girl. You're right. I have to face them. I can't hide anymore. Then do it. She implored, her voice rising and falling like a wave. The weight of the bear grew unbearable, yet he gripped it tightly as if it might anchor him through the storm. You want the truth? Fine. He stepped forward, his heart drumming louder, louder, drowning out the doubts. I sacrificed your livelihoods for profit. I was too blind, too drunk on ambition to see the lives I was destroying. Gasps rang out, a collective intake of breath that echoed off the walls, the truth crashing like the glass outside. But just as he thought he had taken the first step toward redemption, the lights dimmed further, leaving them in near darkness. The shadows shifted again, ominous tendencies swirling like a tempest. What's happening? Someone cried out, the trembling in their voice raw and real. The CEO felt the ground he stood on shudder, not just beneath his feet but deep within his resolve. This was no simple confrontation. This was a reckoning, and then the door burst open, a sudden blast of wind sweeping through the room, blowing out the few remaining lights. There, standing in the aperture, was a silhouette cloaked in darkness, holding an object aloft. "Your past wants to speak to you, CEO," the figure declared, voice hauntingly familiar, sending a chill down his spine. "Are you ready to listen?" With the weight of history pressing against him, the CEO stood still, breath caught in his throat. What awaited on the other side of the shadows? Had the past truly come to claim him, or could he fight back against the inevitable? The figure stepped forward, its identity shrouded in darkness, yet the contours of familiarity washed over him like a tidal wave. He strained against the shadows, desperate to see. "Who are you?" he called, his voice trembling with an urgency that echoed in the stillness of the room. As the figure moved closer, the object they held sparkled, every flicker a reminder of fragile trust. A teddy bear. A child's favorite toy. "This belongs to you, CEO," the figure said, revealing a face half-lit by ghostly light. It was her. The girl who had stood by him in countless meetings, her earnest dedication now morphing into something resolute. "You think you're a leader? You're no better than the monsters outside. You've preyed on innocence," she shouted, voice sharp as glass. "You took everything from those who relied on you, and now it's come back to haunt you." Gasps moved through the crowd like a ripple, the startled faces illuminated by slivers of dim light. The air crackled with tension as the severity of her words sank in. "Don't you remember?" she continued, advancing, bearing the weight of every child and parent who lost their shelter because of his choices. "You put profit above people, and now the past is knocking on your door." A wall of denial began to crumble around him, exposing fissures of buried guilt. He opened his mouth to argue, but all that came out was a desperate, hollow breath. He felt exposed, raw. Every regret he had pent up bubbled at the surface, threatening to drown his ego. Around him, murmurs grew loud and insistent, voices rising like storm winds caught in a frenzy. "You hid behind a wall of glass, made decisions without caring for the lives you shattered." Someone yelled from the shadows. "Enough," he finally shouted, a snap of defiance fracturing the air between them. "I know I messed up. I know. But the mess you made is still here." She pressed. "Will you face them?" He gripped the bear tighter, its softness juxtaposing the storm of emotions within him. "Yes, I will." But the lights flickered again, casting a chaotic play of light and darkness. Within that brief illumination, he caught sight of anguished faces filled with expectation. Broken trust stared back at him, and the weight of their disapproval hit him like a freight train. The shadowy figure turned back, revealing the door through which they had walked. It loomed as a threshold, thick with the echoes of the past. "This is your chance, CEO. Make it count." Every step felt heavy, a leaden chain binding him to the mistakes of yesteryears. But somewhere inside, a flicker of hope ignited. Could he rise from the ashes? Could he gain their forgiveness? "I can't promise to fix everything," he said, voice steadier now. "But I can promise I'll listen. I'll learn. I'll try." With a whirling sense of determination, he crossed the threshold into the uncertain night, the shadows behind him whispering tales of what once was. But as he stepped outside, the cacophony of voices died down, replaced by an unsettling silence. He looked around at the sea of familiar faces, all molded by pain and disillusionment. Yet just past them loomed the group of figures, their hostility more pronounced, their intent more severe. One of them stepped forward, a calm demeanor masking simmering rage. "We don't just want to hear you. We want justice, CEO. Justice for the dreams you crushed." The chill of reality struck him as icy fingers traced down his spine. How would he respond to their fury? Would his words be enough, or was this confrontation only the beginning of something far more terrifying? With hearts still pounding and breaths shallow, they all waited. The moment had come. Would the truth redeem him or consume him whole? The silence stretched. He could feel their eyes boring into him, each one a reminder of the lives he'd disrupted. The tremor of his hands betrayed the confidence he struggled to maintain. He glanced down at the teddy bear, its fabric soft and worn, the stitches frayed at the edges. It tugged at something deep within him, a pang of longing mixed with dread. Justice, he murmured, tasting the word. It felt foreign, like a concept he'd only ever grazed in books and speeches. He straightened, pulling on whatever bravado he could muster. What does justice look like for you? The group shifted, the tension thickening like the air before a thunderstorm. A woman at the front stepped closer, her eyes blazing like coals. You know what it looks like, don't you? It's reparations for the families you turned away, the homes you demolished for profit. It's a reckoning for every child who lost everything because of your decisions. He swallowed hard. Her words stung, each one lacerating what was left of his armor. Guilt stirred inside, threatening to explode. I never intended to hurt anyone, he said, his voice shaking. I thought I was making the right choices for the future, for growth. The crowd answered with a collective scoff, their disbelief palpable in the crisp night air. That's the very problem. Another voice rang out, a deep baritone laced with fury. Your so-called growth came at our expense. Can you even comprehend the devastation you've caused? He stepped back, fighting back the wave of emotions crashing over him. I didn't know it was this bad. Please, I want to make it right. Wanting to make it right isn't enough. A teenage boy shouted, fists clenched. You think we'll be satisfied with empty promises? How many more lives are you willing to sacrifice for a bottom line? A weight crashed onto his chest. The truth lay bare before him, a cruel challenge. I know I can't erase the pain, but I can listen. Laughter erupted, bitter and sharp. Listen? The woman chuckled darkly. How many times did you listen before, when it mattered? In that moment, he realized he stood in a courtroom without walls, where the judges were those he had judged. What if, he hesitated, heart racing. What if I commit to a foundation that helps rebuild? A way to secure homes and education for those affected? The crowd grew quiet, contemplative. There was a flicker of interest, but skepticism lingered in the air. Actions speak louder than words, CEO, said the girl who held the teddy bear. Prove you care. Prove you'll change. But how could he prove anything when the past clawed at his heels? Could he even begin to bridge the chasm he decreated? We'll watch you, the boy warned, stepping forward again. Every move. Every promise. If you slip up, we won't be silent. The chill seeped deeper as night wrapped around them. He nodded, feeling the weight of their gaze fusing him in place. I accept that, he replied, voice barely above a whisper. But if I'm to start, I'll need your help. I'll need your voices, the very stories that haunt you. Something shifted in the crowd, a hesitance to trust, but also an ember of hope. Tonight isn't the end, the girl said, her voice lingering like a ghost. It's merely the beginning. As he turned to leave, a flurry of shadows danced behind him, the figures melding into one. What awaited him was a long, arduous path, one where every misstep could plunge him back into darkness. Would he rise, or would he return to the very monster he was trying to escape? Their murmurs followed him as he walked away. We'll be watching, don't forget that. With every step, the weight of their judgment pressed closer. What would tomorrow hold, and could hope truly exist amid so much anguish? He gulped down the fear gnawing at him. The journey ahead was uncertain, but one thing lingered in this battle for justice: the stakes just got a lot higher. Daylight broke the following morning, but it did little to chase away the shadows clinging to him. The CEO stared blankly at the screen of his phone, the notifications a persistent reminder of a reality he couldn't escape. Emails flooded in from colleagues eager for updates on the foundation he had proposed, the very foundation that now felt like a fragile lifeline. He wondered, could he really do it? Each message felt like a weight on his shoulders, a challenge taunting him. He got up, needing the crisp morning air to clear his mind. The empty streets echoed his footsteps as he walked, the city imperfect yet alive, a world he'd stayed detached from for too long. It was time to immerse himself in the lives he had fractured. He arrived at the community center, the first step in his ambitious plan. A vibrant mural graced the walls, depicting a sunset over families united, but the colors seemed muted compared to the truth hidden behind the smiles. People drifted in and out, uncertain yet curious about the man who had stood before them the night before. "Hey, you're that CEO, right?" A young woman with tattoos trailing up her arms approached, her expression unclear. "You know they'll never trust you, right?" "Trust has to be earned," he replied, forcing confidence into his voice despite the quivering in his chest. "My past doesn't define my future. I want to do something meaningful." She crossed her arms, skepticism etched on her face. "Meaningful, huh? I hope you're ready to show it. Talk's cheap around here." He nodded, feeling the weight of her words. Every heartbeat echoed the reality: he had to succeed. The afternoon unfolded with him listening, truly listening, as families shared their stories of loss, injustice, and the relentless fight for survival. Each narrative unfolded like the peeling of an onion, layers revealing deeper pain. A woman with tired eyes spoke of her children, how they had lost their childhoods, forced to grow up too quickly while he sat in a corner office making decisions oblivious to their struggles. As the sun dipped lower, casting elongated shadows, he gathered the courage to speak. "I'm starting this foundation not just as a CEO but as a part of this community. I need your help to shape it," he urged. The weight of their gaze was heavier than the night before. One by one, faces flicked between hope and doubt, and for a moment, the silence was deafening. Then the teenage boy from the night before stepped forward. "Okay, then. Prove it. 1 week. We'll come back, and if you show you're serious, we'll show up too." "Yes." Another person added, a chant of agreement echoing through the room. It felt surreal. The collective energy shifted from hostility to a cautious willingness, but then something in the back of the room caught his attention. The girl with the teddy bear watched, her expression unreadable. He felt drawn to her, like a moth to a flame. What stories lived behind those dark eyes he hadn't uncovered yet? Would you be my first contact?" he asked, softening his tone. A nod, barely perceptible, but it was a start. As he left the building, a sudden feeling of dread loomed. What if he slipped up? What if the promise of change fell apart, leaving them all in the wreckage of broken trust? The thoughts knotted his stomach. The night swallowed the day's hope, giving way to shadows creeping closer, whispering ominous reminders. He glanced back at the building, feeling the weight of their judgments hovering in the air like storm clouds. Suddenly, his phone buzzed violently in his pocket. An alert flashed on the screen: urgent matter regarding the foundation investors pulling funding. Panic surged. Would this be the end before it even began? He took a deep breath, feeling the cool metal of the teddy bear's button eyes against his palm. In every moment, hope bristled, but beneath it lay the looming question: was he strong enough to carry the burden of lives that depended on him? All eyes would be on him as he stepped into a storm of challenges, and in that storm, trust hung or fell on just one decision. How far would he go to protect those whose lives he once overlooked? With an uncertain heart, he turned back to face the future, steeling himself for the coming battle. The headlights of the car sliced through the encroaching darkness, illuminating the narrow streets as he drove. His palms gripped the steering wheel tightly, his mind racing with the implications of that urgent message. Investors were pulling out. Panic nibbled at the edges of his resolve. How could he possibly make an impact now? He was still trying to earn the community's trust, but without funding, what hope did he have? Each turn of the wheel echoed with doubt. Could he be the hero everyone needed? Or was he just a man whose arrogance had gotten him into a mess? He recalled the faces of those he met earlier: the tired eyes, the eager faces searching for real change. They believed in him, at least for now, but what would happen when they learned the truth about the foundation's unraveling? He parked outside his apartment, the familiar silhouette looking almost foreign. Like a stranger that had once brought comfort but now felt like a cage. Stepping inside, he took a deep breath, letting the door fall shut behind him. He glanced at the stuffed teddy bear resting on his dining table, a tangible sign of his connection to the little girl he'd met. That small gesture had felt significant, but now it weighed heavy with the reality of his situation. What would she think if he failed? Sinking into the couch, he opened his laptop. Emails awaited him: demands for explanations, panicked inquiries from his team. In an attempt to regain control, he had to act fast. But where to start? His mind darted between numbers and options, each one more disheartening than the last. If investors were running scared, how could he turn their doubt around? He was about to shut the laptop in frustration when he received another alert. A news headline caught his eye: CEO under fire, Foundation's future in jeopardy. He felt a knot tighten in his throat. The timing couldn't have been worse. Someone was already stirring the pot, and now the entire community would see him as a fraud. Desperation bubbled within him. A plan had to emerge, or else everything he hoped to build would crumble. He picked up his phone and called the only person he believed might have any idea what he was capable of: his former mentor, a renowned philanthropist known for transforming downtrodden sectors into thriving communities. "James, it's been a while," came the gruff voice on the other line. "Yeah, it's not a social call." His words were clipped and urgent. "I need help. My foundation, it's on the brink, and investors are pulling out. What are you doing about it?" This wasn't the pep talk he needed, but it was true. He felt as if he was only reacting rather than being proactive. But what did he know? Hadn't he just dipped his toes into this unfamiliar world of real change? "I'll figure it out." "I need more time," he replied, hoping the words would conjure some semblance of confidence. "Time is a luxury you don't have, James. You need to show results fast, or you lose everything." The line clicked, leaving him in silence. The darkness around him crept closer, as if it had the power to envelop him in despair. He turned, catching sight of the teddy bear again. It stood like a sentinel, tangible proof of that little girl's hope, a hope he couldn't afford to shatter. Suddenly, a thought ignited. What if I take a different approach? He rummaged through papers on his desk, his heart quickening. Meetings, plans, and breakthrough ideas dashed through his mind. He could organize a community event, rally support in a way that discussions in boardrooms never could. He dashed to his laptop, typing out a plan for the next day. It hit him that this wasn't just about courting investors, it was about rekindling the soul of the community he once left behind. But would they truly show up? Would the community rally around his desperate call to action? With doubts still swirling in his head, he finally closed the laptop. Tomorrow, he'd need to confront the very people he'd hoped to uplift. Would they believe in him, or would they turn their backs, leaving him standing alone? Resolved, he lay back, staring at the ceiling. As shadows danced across the walls, an uneasy question echoed in his mind. What if he couldn't deliver? What if this was just one more failure in a life marred by decisions that only benefited himself? He turned towards the teddy bear once again. "I'll fight for you," he whispered, trying to summon the strength he so desperately needed. With dawn approaching, the world outside began to stir, and he realized it was time. Tomorrow, he'd step back into that building ready to face their scrutiny, armed with nothing but hope and urgency. But in a world so filled with doubt, would hope be enough to keep the doors open, or would he be met with disappointment? As the first rays of sun crept through the window, he leaned forward. Tomorrow would either be a new beginning or the end of everything he hoped to build. The next chapter lay before him, filled with potential, but also with dread. Would the community respond to his call for action? Would he stand alone as they remained skeptical, or would they rally behind him as their leader? The day dawned grim. Gray clouds loomed over the city as if the sky itself conspired against him. The CEO stood outside the community center, heart thudding painfully against his chest. He took a deep breath, steeling himself for what lay ahead. The echoes of last night's confrontation still rolled through his mind, voices of anger and betrayal that wouldn't let him go. He looked down at the teddy bear, its soft, worn fabric a symbol of the hope he was striving to build. "Today is a new day," he whispered to the bear. "You'll help me." Inside, the atmosphere buzzed with unease. Faces twisted in uncertainty greeted him as he entered. They were there, just as he'd hoped, but their trust was fragile, teetering on the brink of shattering. He could see it in their eyes. A young mother tugged at her child's hand, instinctively guiding her away from him. He forced a smile, trying to radiate sincerity. "Thank you for coming," he said, the tremor in his voice betraying him. "I know trust doesn't come easily, but I'm here to listen." A murmur rolled through the crowd. This wasn't just any meeting, it was his reckoning. People shifted, eyes flitting to one another, uncertainty filling the air like smoke.
Does he really mean it? Whispered one voice. Can we ever believe him again?
He straightened, letting the weight of their gazes wash over him. I want to make this right, he began, searching for words that wouldn't falter. I want to build a foundation that genuinely helps this community. But I need your input. It has to reflect your needs, your aspirations.
I can't do this alone.
A boy stepped forward, brow knit in skepticism. He was the same one who had challenged him the night before.
What if this is just another grand speech?
I know I've messed up, and words alone won't fix everything, he replied, voice steadying.
But I'm committed to action.
I have a plan. Plans are nothing without follow-through. Another voice rang out, tightening the air around them.
Let me prove it to you, he implored. I'm organizing a community fair.
It'll showcase our histories, talents, and struggles. Let us pull together to share our stories. I want every one of you to be involved, to guide this foundation's mission and purpose. Momentarily, a hush fell over the group, curiosity replacing skepticism. The young mother exchanged glances with others, her hesitant fear giving way to a flicker of belief.
And this fair, you promise it'll be all about us? What we really want?
She asked, vulnerability seeping into her voice.
Yes,
he said, stepping closer.
I want to hear you.
I'll set up meetings, give you a platform. We'll showcase what our community can achieve together.
Time hung suspended, emotions intermingling fitfully.
The tension in the room felt alive, crackling with the potential for either hope or devastation. Then the girl with the teddy bear piped up, her small voice cutting through the noise.
You're doing it right this time. Just remember, you can't build a future without acknowledging the past.
Her words hit him like a punch.
He nodded, absorbing her wisdom. I know that.
I'll need to answer for my mistakes every step of this journey. With renewed clarity, the tension in the room shifted. Faces transformed, unfolding from scowls and distrust to cautious optimism. A hand rose in the back, a stilted young man, timid but eager.
If you're serious, we'll support you. Just show us you can change.
Not just for you, the teenage boy added, eyes narrowing but softened slightly.
For all of us. The weight lifted. Laughter broke through the tension, and murmurs of agreement rose. He felt it.
A collective sigh, tension easing into shared responsibility. One by one, ideas flew. Creative plans burst forth from the crowd, painting a picture of hope on the blank canvas he desperately tried to sketch. As evening fell, warmth enveloped the center. People lingered, chatting and laughing as they began planning. The potential for real change resonated in the air, undeniably tangible, but just as the buzz crescendoed, a message ding. His phone lit up. News outlets were buzzing again, headlines
flashing. CEO makes promises, can he deliver?
He swallowed the lump in his throat, anxiety creeping back.
The doubt, the fear, would it all hold?
The friends he had found that day stayed close, but the shadows of yesterday still loomed. Stay vigilant, the girl warned, eyes intent. You're on the right path, but it's a long journey.
I know, he admitted softly. But I feel like I've finally found my purpose.
Together, they gathered around him, voices rising in a chorus of enthusiasm. As the final remnants of daylight vanished, he made a silent promise to the teddy bear he held tightly in his hand. Today was just the start, he whispered, heart flickering with hope. He looked out at the faces illuminated by the warm lights of the community center, vibrant with renewed life. No matter how hard the path became, he would fight every shadow, bringing forward the truth buried beneath layers of corporate betrayal. This was his chance. This was his redemption, and he would embrace it, every step of the way. Now, let us not forget, you need to subscribe now, so you don't miss the next exclusive stories.
Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm.
Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories. Let us hear what you thought of this wild ride. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see how hope can spark change. Your support matters.